I stared at the bank statement for what felt like an eternity, my hands trembling as I scrolled through the numbers. $42,000. Gone. Not spent on our mortgage, not on our daughter's college fund, not on anything that made sense. The transaction history showed a series of transfers to his mother's account over the past 8 months, each one carefully timed for when I was busy with work or the kids. I remember thinking in that moment, sitting alone at my kitchen table at 11 p.m. with a cold cup of coffee, that I didn't recognize my own marriage anymore. Or maybe I never had. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to when everything felt normal, when I still believed in the life we'd built together. My name is Ashley, and 3 years ago, I was genuinely happy. Not the fake Instagram kind of happy, but the real, quiet kind, where you wake up grateful for what you have. Michael and I had been married for 10 years. We met in college. He was studying business, I was nursing, and we'd built something solid together. Our home was a 4-bedroom craftsman in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon, with a wraparound porch and a garden I'd spent 2 summers perfecting. The neighborhood was perfect. Tree-lined streets, neighbors who actually knew each other's names, the kind of place where kids rode bikes and people knew their kids were safe. Michael worked as a financial consultant for a mid-sized firm downtown. He was good at his job, really good. His salary had climbed steadily over the years, and by the time the story begins, he was making around $180,000 a year. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. We had savings, we took a family vacation every summer, and we didn't lie awake at night worrying about bills. Our kids, Emma, who was 12, and Jackson, who had just turned 9, went to good schools. They took music lessons and played soccer. Life was textbook American middle-class stability. I loved my work as a pediatric nurse. I worked 3 days a week at Oregon Health and Science University Hospital, which gave me flexibility to be home with the kids the rest of the time. It was the perfect balance, or so I thought. Michael was supportive of my career, or at least he said he was. He'd bring me coffee in bed on my days off, kiss me on the forehead before he left for work, and ask about my shift when he came home. We had our routines. Tuesday nights were for date night if we could manage it. Sundays were for family breakfast and whatever chaos came after. His mother, Linda, lived about 20 minutes away in a smaller house in Gresham. She was a widow. Michael's father had passed when Michael was 23, and she'd always been part of our life. Too much of a part, if I'm being honest, though I never would have said that out loud back then. She called multiple times a week. She showed up unannounced on weekends with casseroles and grocery bags full of things she thought we needed. She had opinions about how we raised the kids, what car Michael should drive, what I should cook, how I should decorate our living room. But she was his mother, and I respected that. I tried to be kind to her, even when she made comments about my nursing schedule taking me away from the family, or when she suggested that Emma needed more discipline, or when she implied that I wasn't managing the household finances well enough. I told myself that mothers-in-law came with the territory of marriage, and that her intrusions came from a place of love, even if they felt invasive. Michael's relationship with his mother was complicated. He loved her deeply, that was obvious, but he also seemed trapped by that love in a way I couldn't quite name. When she called, he always answered. When she asked for something, he usually said yes. When she criticized me or the kids, he'd defend us, but only mildly, and usually only after she'd already said whatever cutting remark she'd come to deliver. I remember one dinner in particular, about 6 months before everything fell apart. We were at her house, and she'd made her famous pot roast. She was in a good mood, telling stories about Michael's childhood, and I was genuinely enjoying myself. The kids were laughing, Michael was relaxed. Then, somehow, the conversation turned to money. "You know," Linda said, refilling her wine glass, "when my James was alive, we managed to save 30% of his income, every single year. 30%. It's about discipline and priorities." I felt Michael tense beside me. I didn't say anything. I was used to these comments, the way she'd slip in these little jabs about our financial management. Times are different now, Mom, Michael said carefully. Everything costs more. That's an excuse, Linda replied, not unkindly, but with that edge she had. It's about what you value. Your father valued security. He valued his family's future. I wonder if that's still a priority for you. Michael didn't respond. He just cut into his meat and chewed slowly. I reached under the table and squeezed his hand. He squeezed back, but his jaw was clenched. That should have been a warning sign. Looking back now, I can see it so clearly. The way he'd shrunk under her judgment, the way he sought her approval even as an adult with his own family. But I was busy. I was working, managing the household, raising 2 kids. I didn't have time to psychoanalyze my husband's relationship with his mother. Everything seemed fine, normal, safe. Then, one Thursday in March, everything changed. I was at work, in the PICU, when Michael texted me that his mother had called. Nothing unusual about that. But then he called me during my break, something he rarely did. "Hey," he said. His voice sounded strange. "My mom's having some financial trouble. She's behind on her mortgage. She might lose the house." I remember standing in the break room, my stethoscope around my neck, trying to process what he was saying. Behind on her mortgage? How much are we talking about? "About $12,000, he said quietly. "She's been dealing with some medical bills. She didn't want to tell anyone, but it's gotten serious." "Michael, that's a lot of money," I said. "Has she talked to her bank about restructuring? There are programs." "She's embarrassed," he interrupted. "She doesn't want to deal with it." I was thinking I could help her out. Just this once. Get her caught up, and then she can get back on track. I leaned against the counter. $12,000 was not insignificant to us. It wasn't devastating, but it would affect our savings, our plans. We'd been talking about redoing the kitchen. We'd been saving for it for 2 years. "Let's talk about this when I get home," I said. "Don't make any decisions yet." "I know," he said. "I just wanted to give you a heads up." But I could hear something in his voice that worried me. Not quite desperation, but something close to it. Something that sounded like he'd already made up his mind, and he was just being polite by asking. That evening, after the kids were in bed, we sat on the couch with a bottle of wine, and I tried to have a rational conversation about it. Michael listened to my concerns about our savings, about how we'd managed to build a safety net, about how helping his mother couldn't come at the expense of our own security. "I know," he kept saying. "I know, but she's my mother. I can't just let her lose her house." "I'm not saying we can't help," I said carefully. "But $12,000 is a significant amount. Maybe we do $5,000? Maybe we help her work through the other options first?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What if I just took it from my 401k? Early withdrawal. It wouldn't affect our checking or savings." "Michael, you know there are penalties for that. And taxes. You'd lose thousands more." "But it would be mine," he said. "My money. My retirement account." There was something in the way he said it that stopped me from arguing further. It felt like a boundary, like he was telling me he needed this decision to be his alone. And maybe I was tired. Maybe I was trying to pick my battles. Maybe I was naive. "Okay," I said finally. "If that's what you need to do, we'll figure it out." He kissed the top of my head, and I thought that was the end of it. A difficult conversation, but resolved, handled, done. I was so wrong. Over the next 6 months, I watched my marriage dissolve like sugar in water. The $12,000 turned into $20,000, then $30,000, then $42,000. Each time Michael asked, I said yes, because I was terrified of what would happen if I didn't. He'd grown distant, irritable. He'd snap at the kids over nothing. He'd work late, or so he said, though I started checking his location on our shared phone and found him parked outside his mother's house at 10 o'clock at night. I didn't confront him about it. I was afraid. Afraid of the answer. Afraid of what it would mean for our family. Afraid of the person he seemed to be becoming. Instead, I started documenting things. I screenshotted the bank statements. I kept a notebook where I wrote down the dates and amounts. I told myself it was just insurance, just in case. Though in case of what, I couldn't quite articulate. The real turning point came on a Tuesday in September. I was home early from a shift. One of the kids had gotten sick at school, and I found Michael in his study with the door locked. I could hear him on the phone, his voice low and urgent. When he came out, his face was pale. "I need to talk to you," he said. "We need to sit down and talk about Mom's situation." We sat in the living room. The afternoon light was coming through the windows in these long, golden bars. It felt obscene, how beautiful it was, how normal the room looked when everything was falling apart. "She needs more money," Michael said without preamble. "Significantly more. There are other debts we didn't know about, credit cards, medical bills. She's been in denial about the severity of it. Her house is going into foreclosure in 45 days. I stared at him. "Michael, we've already given her over $40,000. "I know. We have 2 children. We have our own mortgage. We have a life." "I know," he said again, but his jaw was clenched, his eyes hard. "But she's my mother. I can't let her become homeless." "How much?" I asked quietly. "60,000 more. For now." For now. Those words hung in the air between us like a guillotine blade. "No," I said. It was the first time I'd said it. The word felt strange in my mouth, powerful and terrifying. "No, I won't allow it." Michael stood up. "It's not your decision to allow or not allow. It's my money. It's my mother." "Your money is our money," I said, standing too. "That was the agreement when we got married. That's what a partnership is." "Well, maybe I don't want a partnership anymore," he said, and the venom in his voice made me take a step backward. "Maybe I want to take care of my mother without having to justify it to you." I felt something crack inside my chest. "Is that what this is about? Is that what Linda told you?" His face flushed. "My mother has nothing to do with this." "She has everything to do with this," I said. My voice was shaking now. "She's been poisoning you against me for months. Every conversation, every dinner, every phone call is about how I'm not good enough, how I'm not managing our money well enough, how I'm taking you away from your family. And you've been drinking it in like it's water." "That's not fair," Michael said. "Isn't it?" I moved closer to him. "Tell me something. If I asked you to choose between me and your mother, who would it be?" He didn't answer. He looked away. "That's what I thought," I said quietly. The next day, I called my friend Jennifer. We'd known each other since nursing school, and she'd gone through a difficult divorce 5 years earlier. She gave me the name of her attorney, a woman named Rebecca Chen, who specialized in family law. I made an appointment for the following Monday. I sat in Rebecca's office, sleek and modern, with photos of Portland's skyline on the walls, and I told her everything. The $42,000, the transfers, the way Michael had become a stranger, the way he'd chosen his mother over his own children's security. Rebecca listened without interrupting, her pen moving steadily across her notepad. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me over her reading glasses. "Do you want to divorce him?" she asked. The question hit me like a physical blow, because I hadn't let myself think about it in those terms. I'd been so focused on the money, on the betrayal, that I hadn't actually articulated what I wanted to happen next. "I don't know," I said. "I want him to stop. I want my marriage back." "But I don't think that's going to happen." "Then we need to act quickly," Rebecca said. "You have some leverage here. The unauthorized transfers, the pattern of financial irresponsibility, the fact that you have documentation. If you want to protect yourself and your children, we need to move now, before he does something else." I spent that night unable to sleep. I lay in bed next to Michael, listening to him breathe, and I felt like I was lying next to a ghost. The man I'd married 10 years ago was gone. This person beside me, This person who would bankrupt his own family for his mother's approval was someone I didn't recognize. On Wednesday morning, after Michael left for work, I called my mother and asked her to come stay with us. She was there within 2 hours, her car full of groceries and clean laundry, the way she always came when there was crisis. I told her what was happening. She cried. She held my hand. She told me she'd be there for whatever came next. That evening, when Michael came home, he found Rebecca's business card on the kitchen counter. His face went absolutely white. "You're getting a lawyer?" "Yes," I said. I was standing in the kitchen, my mother visible in the living room behind me, a silent witness and shield. "I'm protecting my family. From you. I'm protecting our children's college funds, our home, our future. You've made it clear that I can't depend on you to do that anymore." "Ashley, don't do this," he said. His voice had changed. The hardness was gone. Now he just sounded desperate. "Please, we can fix this. We can work it out." "Can we?" I asked. "Can you honestly tell me that you'll stop giving money to your mother? Can you tell me you won't do this again?" He was silent. "That's what I thought," I said. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Michael fought me on everything. He claimed he hadn't authorized all the transfers, that some of them were for household expenses, even though they went directly into Linda's account. He said I was trying to alienate him from his mother. He accused me of being greedy, of not understanding family loyalty. But I had the documentation. I had the screenshots. I had the bank statements showing the pattern of transfers over 8 months. I had the testimony of our financial advisor, who confirmed that the withdrawals from his 401k had violated our financial planning agreement. More importantly, I had my own income. I had my job. I had my reputation as a pediatric nurse at one of the best hospitals in the state. I had stability that didn't depend on Michael. Rebecca was methodical and ruthless. She deposed Michael's employer. She reviewed his work emails to establish a timeline of when he'd made decisions about the transfers. She even contacted Linda, who, when faced with the reality of legal proceedings, suddenly became very cooperative about confirming that Michael had, in fact, given her the money without my knowledge or consent. That last part was the thing that broke Michael. When he realized his own mother was testifying against him, that she was willing to sacrifice him to protect herself, something seemed to break inside him. I found him sitting in the driveway one afternoon, just sitting in his car, staring at nothing. The kids were at school. I'd come home from a shift to find him there. I stood at the garage door, watching him, and I felt a strange mixture of pity and anger. He saw me and got out of the car. His face was haggard, his eyes red. "She said it was your fault," he said without preamble. "When she found out I was being sued, when she understood that I was in real trouble, she said you'd manipulated me into giving her the money. She said you were trying to turn me against her. She said I should blame you, that you were the reason this was happening." I didn't say anything. I just watched him. "I gave her $60,000, Ashley, and when I needed her to stand with me, she threw me under the bus." "Yes," I said quietly. "You tried to warn me," he said. "You tried to tell me what she was doing, and I didn't listen." I still didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. The realization had come too late, and there were too many casualties already. The settlement was finalized in January. Michael got to keep his job. The court decided that while his financial judgment was terrible, it didn't constitute grounds for termination. He had to pay me a significant portion of his salary for the next 5 years to make up for the unauthorized transfers and the damage to our financial future. He got supervised visitation with the kids, which broke my heart, but Rebecca advised me that it was necessary given his demonstrated inability to put their needs first. Our house went on the market. We couldn't both afford to keep it, and frankly, I didn't want to stay there anymore. Too many memories. Too many conversations that had happened in those rooms where I'd tried to make him understand what was happening. I bought a smaller home with my settlement, a 3-bedroom cottage in a different neighborhood. It's newer, smaller, but it's mine. The kids have adjusted. Emma was angry with Michael for a long time, but she's starting to forgive him. Jackson just wanted things to go back to normal, but he's learning that they won't, and that sometimes that's okay. Michael has been trying to rebuild. He's in therapy, his own choice, not court-ordered. He's paying his child support on time. He's been honest about what happened, at least with me. He told me that his mother had been pulling him toward her his entire life, that my presence in his life had been one of the few counterweights to her influence, and that when he thought he was choosing her over me, he was really just giving in to a lifetime of conditioning. I didn't forgive him, not entirely, but I've come to understand that sometimes people are broken in ways that aren't their fault, even if the consequences of that brokenness are their responsibility. Linda, as far as I know, is still in her house in Gresham. Michael still helps her financially. The court couldn't prevent that, but it's monitored now. Everything goes through a separate account. Everything is documented. He sees her on weekends, and he's set clear boundaries about what he will and won't do for her. As for me, I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm strong. I'm independent. I have my children, my career, and a home that's truly mine. I've dated a little, nothing serious, but I'm not looking for someone to complete me anymore. I'm complete on my own. If I could go back and give my younger self advice, I'd tell her this: love is not enough. Trust matters, but verification matters too. And sometimes, the people we love will choose other people over us. And that's not a reflection of our worth, it's a reflection of their wounds. We can't heal them by loving them harder or by sacrificing more. We can only protect ourselves and our children and hope that one day they'll understand what they lost. I got my life back. That's the real ending to this story. Not revenge, not vindication, just my life back, lived on my own terms, with people who choose me every single day.